Hey everyone, welcome back. Ever wish you could just download the secrets of being an amazing teacher?
Like straight into your brain.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we can't promise that, but today we are going deep on the top 10 teaching strategies.
We're going way beyond just a list, though.
Right. We want to really get into what makes these strategies so effective.
Exactly. It's all about understanding how these techniques connect to, well, the science of learning.
Okay, so picture this. We're building the ultimate toolkit for educators. What are those must-haves, those essential tools we need right from the get-go?
So before we even get into those specific strategies, we have to talk about two fundamental pieces.
Okay, lay it on me.
Deep subject mastery and also being able to build those, strong positive relationships with students.
Gotcha. So it's not enough to just know the textbook inside and out.
Right. It's important, but
It's just the starting point.
totally. Think
Yeah.
about it. Have you ever learned something new and the person teaching you, they're clearly so passionate, so knowledgeable about the subject?
Oh, absolutely. Their energy, it's infectious.
Exactly. And that's what a teacher who has that deep subject mastery, that's what they bring to the classroom. It's like they're not just delivering information, they're bringing it to life. They can pull in those real world examples, you know, anticipate where a student might get tripped up.
And then, bam, make those connections that make it all click.
Exactly.
So it's one thing to know the material, but it's a whole other ballgame to be able to actually teach it to make it resonate with students.
Okay, so we've got the subject mastery part down, but then how do those positive relationships, like how do we build those in?
Well, it's about creating that classroom culture where students feel supported. Like it's safe to take risks.
To ask questions, even if they think those questions might be dumb questions.
Exactly. Even to be wrong sometimes.
Which, let's be honest, we all learn so much from our mistakes, right?
Absolutely. Think back to a time when you felt truly supported in your own learning. Maybe it was a mentor or even a friend, someone who just created that safe space for you to explore, to make those mistakes, and to ultimately grow.
Exactly. That's the kind of environment where real learning, it just flourishes.
I love that. It's about building that trust, right? So students know they can kind of be vulnerable, take those intellectual leaps without the fear of judgment. Okay, so we've laid the groundwork. We've got subject mastery, positive relationships. But even in the most supportive environment, keeping students motivated, I mean, that can feel like an uphill battle sometimes, right?
Oh, for sure.
How do we ignite that spark that makes them want to learn?
Right. And I think there's this misconception that motivation, it's all external, driven by, you know,
Grades, rewards, all that jazz.
yeah. And while those things definitely have their place, the real magic, it happens when you tap into intrinsic motivation.
Okay, I'm all for a little magic in the classroom. Tell me more about that.
It's that inherent desire to learn, to grow. It comes from within.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? How do we make learning something students crave?
One really powerful technique is setting high expectations.
Okay, but achievable ones, right?
Exactly. High, but achievable. It's about communicating to students, hey, I believe in your ability to do this.
You're capable of reaching those goals even if it takes a few tries.
Yes, and we'll give you the tools and support you need. Remember that saying, shoot for the moon.
Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars.
There you go. It's about setting that bar high, but
That's
making
it.
sure they have what they need to reach it.
So it's not just about cheerleading. It's about giving them concrete ways to rise to that challenge.
And alongside those high expectations, giving regular specific feedback.
Because let's be honest, a good job doesn't really tell you anything.
You're right.
It's like saying good sunset. I mean, sure, but not very helpful. You need specifics to actually learn and grow.
You hit the nail on the head. Think of it like having a coach who sees your strength, but also helps you fine-tune your technique. And speaking of celebrating progress, let's not forget about effort.
Oh, so true. A student might not get it on the first try, but if they're showing that persistence, that willingness to learn, I mean, that deserves to be recognized just as much as a perfect score.
I completely agree. Celebrating those small victories, those moments of perseverance, that's how you build that growth mindset.
We're teaching them that it's okay to stumble, to make mistakes, as long as they're willing to get back up and keep learning.
Exactly.
Ooh, this is reminding me of that quote. It's not about being perfect, it's about being better than you were yesterday.
I love that one.
Okay, so we've got our foundation. We've got subject mastery, positive relationships, and a focus on that inner drive.
That intrinsic motivation.
Yes. Now, are you ready to dive into those 10 teaching strategies that really bring it all together?
I am. Let's do it.
All right, let's build this ultimate teaching toolkit. All right, let's dive in. What's the first strategy we're adding to this toolkit of ours?
First up, active learning techniques.
Active learning.
Yeah. We're talking about moving past passive learning, where
Yeah.
students are just absorbing information. We got to get them actively involved.
This is already sounding way more interesting than like my high school history lectures, where the most active I got was trying to decipher my own notes at the end.
Right.
How do we actually make learning active, though? How do we bring that to life in the classroom?
Think collaborative projects, debates, role-playing, anything that gets students applying what they're learning. Hands-on, minds-on.
I'm picturing like a science lab, but for every subject.
Exactly. Let's say you're teaching a history lesson about, I don't know, ancient civilizations.
Yeah.
Instead of just lecturing about the Roman Empire, why not transport your students back in time?
Now you've got my attention. Time travel. Sign me up.
Right. Through a project. Students could work in groups, do some research on different parts of Roman society, put together presentations. They could even build models of Roman architecture.
Or like design costumes.
Exactly. A Roman marketplace simulation.
Suddenly, togas and chariots are way more interesting than a textbook chapter.
Right.
It's like stepping into like a living, breathing history book. Okay, strategy number 2. Differentiated instruction. This one feels really important because, well, no two students are exactly alike, right?
Absolutely. And differentiated instruction really recognizes that one size fits all. It just doesn't work in education.
Makes sense.
It's like, a gardener who tends to case different plants based on their unique needs.
Mhm.
A teacher needs to tailor their instruction the same way, meet the students where they are.
So we're talking different learning styles, different paces of learning, different interests.
All of it, all of the above.
Mhm.
It's about recognizing those differences and then, providing different options and choices so each student can really thrive.
So that could look like, what, offering different levels of support for an assignment, providing materials in a bunch of different formats?
Absolutely. Visual, auditory, even kinesthetic.
Oh, I love that. Or even just letting students choose how they want to show what they've learned.
Exactly. A written report, a presentation, even a creative project.
It's like personalized learning, but for a whole classroom. I love that. All right, next up, technology. This feels like a big one, especially in our, increasingly digital world.
For sure. Technology can be a total game changer in education.
And I'm guessing we're not just talking about like replacing textbooks with iPads here, right?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
It's about using tech to create really immersive, engaging learning experiences that, honestly, we couldn't do with those traditional methods alone.
So less about worksheets on a screen and more about pushing the boundaries of what we even think of as learning, right?
Absolutely.
Give me an example. Give me something that would made like 10-year-old me actually excited to learn.
Okay, imagine you're teaching a unit on astronomy. Instead of just looking at pictures in a textbook, why not use virtual reality?
Oh, wow.
Take your students on a virtual field trip to the solar system.
Okay, yeah, 10-year-old me is very into that.
You could even go back in time to witness the Big Bang.
See, now that's what I'm talking about. That's bringing learning to life. I would have traded all my recess snacks for a field trip like that. What else can technology do?
Well, we also have all these great educational apps and software now.
Right.
They can do things like, create personalized learning paths for each student, allow them to work at their own pace and get that targeted support.
I love that.
And then, of course, there's gamification.
Okay, I have to admit, I hear gamification, and I get a little bit,
Flashback to those old educational computer games.
maybe, but I'm guessing we're on a whole other level now.
Oh, absolutely. Think like interactive quizzes, digital badges for completing challenges. You could even create simulations where students have to work together to, I don't know, solve a problem or complete some kind of mission.
Okay, that actually does sound kind of cool.
Right.
And who doesn't love a little friendly competition?
Exactly. It taps into that, that natural drive. Plus, it's just fun.
And fun is good. All right, strategy number 4. Scaffolding. We've touched on this a bit already, but I think it deserves its own moment in the spotlight, don't you?
For sure. Scaffolding is so important. It's all about providing those temporary supports that can help students tackle things that might seem a little overwhelming at first.
Right.
Like, maybe breaking down a complex concept into smaller steps, making it feel more manageable.
So they can experience success along the way.
Exactly. It's like When you were learning to ride a bike,
Oh, yeah.
you might have needed training wheels at first,
Yeah,
but eventually you get the hang of it, right? You build up that confidence and you can ride on your own.
exactly. Scaffolding, it's like those training wheels. Okay, so that could look like we're providing graphic organizers
Real.
or modeling a problem-solving process step by step.
That's it.
Mhm.
Or even just pairing up students with different skill levels so they can kind of learn from each other.
I love that. It's
Yeah.
about meeting them where they are, giving them that support, and then as they learn and grow, gradually releasing that support. Okay, this next one has me intrigued. Multisensory learning. Are we talking about engaging all five senses here?
Well, I can't promise a classroom that always smells like freshly baked cookies.
Oh, man.
But multisensory learning is about recognizing that we all learn best when our senses are engaged.
You're right. I'm a very visual learner myself. I need those diagrams, those images to really grasp a concept. But how do we bring in those other senses?
It's about appealing to all those different learning styles. Let's say you're teaching poetry.
Okay, yeah.
Instead of just having students read silently, you could play music to set the mood. You could have them do a choral reading together
Oh, I like that.
to emphasize the rhythm and rhyme. Or even have them create artwork inspired by the poem.
So it's about creating that immersive experience that like goes beyond just those words on the page.
Exactly.
What a powerful way to make learning memorable. Okay, next up we have project-based learning. And this one, this one just sounds engaging.
It really is. Project-based learning, it's about getting rid of those isolated worksheets and textbook exercises and instead immersing students in real-world situations.
Oh, I love that.
They have to
Yeah.
use what they're learning in a meaningful way.
So it's less memorizing and more doing?
Exactly. Less, here's a bunch of facts, and more, let's solve a problem or let's create something amazing.
Yes. Okay, give me an example.
So let's say you're teaching a unit on environmental science. Instead of lecturing about pollution and climate change, you challenge your students. Have them design a recycling program for the whole school.
Oh, wow.
Or create like a public service announcement to raise awareness about some local environmental issues.
See, that's what I'm talking about, taking learning beyond the classroom walls.
Right.
Students aren't just, passively absorbing information. They're becoming active citizens, problem solvers.
Yep.
That's incredibly empowering. Okay, we're on to strategy number 7, formative assessment and feedback. Now, I gotta say, when I hear assessment, I get a little bit of like a flashback to those standardized tests, the number 2 pencils, the answer bubbles.
Oh, yeah.
But this is different, right?
Completely different. We are not talking about those high-stakes end-of-year exams. Formative assessment is all about those informal check-ins that teachers can use throughout the learning process.
Okay, so it's more about like checking in, seeing where students are at, and then maybe adjusting your teaching along the way.
Exactly. It's about creating that feedback loop, meeting students where they are, think exit tickets at the end of class,
Oh, yeah, those are good.
or even just observing your students during group work. See who's understanding the concept and maybe who needs a little extra help.
It's like those little checkpoints you find along a hiking trail, right? A chance to, catch your breath, make sure you're on the right track, maybe even adjust your route if you need to. Speaking of trails, this feels like a good spot for a quick recap. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
So, we started with those active learning techniques. Then we explored differentiated instruction, harnessed the power of technology. We talked about building those supportive scaffolds, engaging all the senses with multisensory learning, tackling real-world problems with project-based learning.
Don't forget formative assessment.
Oh, right. And we're using all of that to fine-tune our teaching and give those really targeted feedback.
And we're not done yet. We still have a few more tools to add to our teaching toolkit.
Even more. Perfect, because I am ready to dive back in. What's next? Okay, spill it. What other teaching treasures are we uncovering today?
Well, you know how much we love a good chat, right?
Who doesn't?
So strategy number 8 is all about engaging classroom discussions. We're talking about moving past that, typical teacher asks, student answers routine.
Right, like let's shake things up a bit.
Exactly. Creating a space where we can really exchange ideas, debate, really refine our thinking through dialogue.
I remember those classes where we got to really talk about what we were learning. It just made everything so much more interesting.
It's about shifting from like that sage on the stage to the guide on the side.
Love that.
The teacher becomes more of a facilitator, Guiding the conversation, asking those thought-provoking questions.
Because sometimes the best insights come from the most unexpected places.
Right.
It's like a student who's been quiet all semester will ask a question, and it sparks this whole new level of understanding.
And it's about creating that space where that can happen,
Mhm.
where those sparks of insight, they're not getting, snuffed out.
So how do we, as educators, how do we cultivate that kind of environment, that really open dialogue?
Well, I think it starts with the classroom culture, making it a place where every student feels seen, heard, respected.
Safe to take risks, to not have all the answers. Because, let's be real, sometimes the most powerful learning comes from admitting what we don't know.
100%. It's about creating that space where vulnerability is a strength.
Okay, on to strategy number 9, culturally responsive teaching. This one feels, I don't know, maybe more important than ever these days.
I agree. It's not just about, adding a few diverse books to your bookshelf or like celebrating different holidays.
Right, it's got to be more than a checklist.
Way more. It's about recognizing that each student, they walk into our classrooms with this whole set of experiences, different perspectives, cultural backgrounds.
And we need to honor that, celebrate it even.
Exactly.
So how do we do that? How do we make sure those diverse voices and stories are woven into what and how we teach?
It's about making sure that all students see themselves reflected in the materials we use, the topics we explore.
It's not an afterthought. It's like baked into the DNA of our teaching.
That's a great way to put it. It's about creating that learning environment where every student feels seen, heard, valued for exactly who they are.
Because when we feel like we belong, when our education reflects our own experiences, our own identities, that's when the real magic happens, right?
I think so.
Okay, last but not least, we've got strategy number 10, reflection and adaptability. This feels less like a single strategy and more like, I don't know, the secret ingredient.
Secret sauce.
Yes, that makes all the other strategies even better.
And you're right, because reflection and adaptability, those are so essential. It's about understanding that what works for one group of students one year, it might not work for a different group the next year.
Right, things change. Our students change. And we as educators, we have to be willing to change and adapt right alongside them.
Exactly. We never stop learning and growing. And as teachers, we should never stop evolving our craft either.
So how do we actually do that? How do we embrace that kind of continuous improvement?
Ask yourself those tough questions. What's working in my classroom? What could be better? How are my students responding? And most importantly, what can I change to make this learning environment even better?
Be a reflective practitioner.
Yes.
Always learning, always growing. I love that this last strategy brings us back to that idea of lifelong learning, not just for our students, but for ourselves too.
It's a lifelong journey.
It really is. So as we get ready to, wrap up this incredible deep dive, what's the one thing you really hope educators will take away from this conversation?
I think at the end of the day, teaching, it's about connection, building those relationships with our students, creating that space where they feel safe, supported, and inspired.
Because we're all in this together, right?
Oh, yeah.
Teachers, students, we're all learning and growing together.
That's what it's all about.
Well, this has been amazing. I always learn so much from our deep dives, and this one had me feeling so energized and inspired to get back into the classroom.
Me too. I love this job.
It's a good one, right? And I think what's been so great about exploring these 10 strategies is that it's not about, just getting those test scores up, as important as those can be.
Right.
It's about something bigger. It's about making that learning experience joyful, engaging.
Right. And empowering.
Yes, for everyone involved. And to all those amazing educators out there listening, thank you for everything you do for making that magic happen each and every day.
Here.
Until next time, keep asking those great questions and never stop exploring.